In this video, I want to show you one of my fun projects regarding Power BI, because a lot of my videos are about certain types of data visualization for a certain business case. But this is something I just did for myself because it was fun. It's my data and I want to analyze. And what is that? It's my dive log. Like, I'm a diver. I like to dive all around the world in very warm water. And I have a dive computer and several of these dive logs by now, where I write down all the information about my dive, like where was it, who was my buddy, how much weight did I have, what was the air consumption, these kind of things. And my dive computer is super handy because it provides me with my dive profile, like where was I when, at what depth. It also has the temperature, these kind of things. And I want to share this because I always tell people when I get started with data visualization, analyze some data or visualize some data that you actually know, that you like, that you care about, and try the stuff you want to do, not because it's the best practice, but because you want to try stuff. You need to try different things to learn what works and what doesn't work. If you always just blindly follow all these best practices, you just become like this copy of someone else. Just try new stuff. Working with your own data is much more fun than with some demo data that doesn't tell you anything. So I do this with my diving data. A lot of people also have like smartwatches that you can analyze. I saw people analyze the music they're listening. There's all kinds of stuff that you can analyze. And the funny story about this dive computer, actually, I bought it because the promise was that I would not need to create a dashboard myself. The brand, it doesn't exist anymore. They filed for bankruptcy many years ago. It promised this not that expensive dive computer, and it would have an app, a really fancy app with really nice data visualization, and people could share the videos and pictures they've made, and you could comment on other people's stuff, and it's all for free. So if anyone wonders why this company had to file for bankruptcy, data is expensive, and this watch was quite cheap compared with other dive computers, and having this whole app, which was amazing. They did an amazing job. Of course, that didn't work out. Unfortunately, they tried with a subscription, but then people didn't want to pay that because most of us go diving like once or twice a year if we're lucky. So that was pretty sad, because with that company gone, the app was also gone. The watch still works. It's a totally fine dive watch, but I got this specific model because I wanted to actually have the nice data visualization and stuff. And I had the hardest time to get the data off this dive computer. Luckily, there are people, really amazing people, that do stuff for free and share it. And there's this app, Subsurface, that you can use with a lot of dive computers, not only that one. And you can connect to it and get your diving data, like your dive profile and stuff. And I think it was last updated 2022. The user experience and user interface of the app, questionable, but it's for free. It gets me the data I otherwise wouldn't get off this watch. So I'm massively thankful to these people that created that. And because of them and that app, where I can get all this really nice information, I can actually create a dashboard myself with my own data visualization. And looking at it from the perspective now, I actually enjoy that even more than using an app from someone else, because like I said, I can create my own stuff. So this was a very long introduction of this topic, but I got a lot of comments from people that were like, oh, it's so nice that you actually always explain why you do stuff and not just tell, and now we do this. So I thought I will provide you with the background information. So how do I analyze my data? The information I get from the app is a CSV. There are other formats that I can choose, but I choose CSV, and I get my dive profile out of there. So when I went into the water, at which depth I was, I think it's by 20 seconds, what the water temperature was, like very important information. So that's in an Excel file. And that's fine because, like I said, I'm diving, if I'm lucky, once or twice a year. I love diving, but I live in the Netherlands and I like warm water, so choices are limited. So the Excel is fine. When I'm coming back from my dive vacation, it's kind of nice to spend like a few hours to just fill that file and think back about all that stuff that I did. So I'm completely fine with that. And next to my dive computer, I of course also told you I have this information from my dive logs. And this is handwritten. I can show you, like you can see like where was it, when, what I see. These are the stamps from the diving center. And what do? I open another page of that Excel and I write everything down. So I write down like what was the place where I was diving, who was my buddy, was there a dive master or a dive guide, what did I see, all the fish that I see, or all the fish that I remember. I see a lot of fish, and if you look at my dive log, you will see like 10 max, because I'm like, oh, this is amazing. And at the end of the dive, I'm like, I saw fish. And I even have the certification for fish identification. I know them, but it's just once you're underwater and you see so many fish, I keep it to the highlights. So that information I also write down in Excel. And then there's something I do, which is every time I do it, and I think about it, I'm like, why are you doing this? But I actually also have a separate Excel page where I have every fish or the highlight fish that I've seen. And then for each dive, a 1 or a 0 if I have seen them on that dive. And up until last year, I did that manually. I looked up the fish, went to that dive and put in a 1 or a 0. Fortunately, with AI now, I just fill in for my dive log. This was dive 130. I have seen these fish. Please put them in that Excel. Put a 1 there and otherwise a 0, which makes my life a lot easier. Why did I love about telling you this? Probably there are 5 ways how to do that easier. This is probably not the most efficient way to do it, but it works. And it works for me because it's my dive log. It's not one of the company's source tables or something like that. And I think that's very important with all these projects. People sometimes get lost in the complexity because they're like, I want to create data visualization of my running profile. And then they get lost in where do I need to store the data? How do I need to model it? I want a star schema, all these kind of things, best practices. And then they never get started because they just get lost in all like the side quests. So for my personal projects, they often look very messy. I share a lot of stuff, and the stuff that I share, I probably spend most time cleaning it and making it shareable so people don't think, what's she doing? Because all the personal stuff, I often go for quick and messy and just do the stuff I really like. It's your own project. So now after this intro, I want to show you actually how I created that, and I want to give you some tips and tricks. I, for example, want to show you how you can create something like this, where you can actually see this gradient in the background of a line chart. This is a line chart, and also how you get that format, and just give you some ideas, because I created my dive log, and we are, by the way, if you wonder, we are in Power BI desktop here. I created it in 3 different ways, and that's why it's the fun part. So one of them is like this, like the highly visual. You can see if I go with my mouse over it, this is stacked. So many things are stacked here. It's a fixed background that I'm using. This is just for fun. You see I added some bubbles in there and just some fun visualization. Then I created like another version, like this dashboard, which is more like dashboard style, where I have the KPIs at the top, like how many dives, how many dive spots, how many countries have I been to, what was the max depth, average depth, diving countries. You can see I dive a lot in Egypt, but also Bonaire, Maldives, Thailand, Bali, all these places. You can see where I was diving, in which year, and you can see like in 2020 I have not been diving. Like most people, I was indoors, and then I could dive again in 2021, and I totally went for it. The average dive length in minutes, and this maybe sounds funny, but when I started diving, I was like hyperventilating underwater. I was going through my air so fast because I just needed to train more, get more experience. It's probably everything you learn at the beginning. I was very new, a little bit anxious. Do I understand what I'm doing? And then with time, it went better. And then I also learned that other stuff also influences it. Like now I have my own equipment, like equipment that was partly designed for me specifically, which fits perfectly and gives me this really good feeling about what I'm doing. The same for average weight used. When I started, I was packed, like you can see, like 9 or 10 kilos. Now I'm down to 3 to 4 kilos, depending on where I dive. Also experience. But when I started this dashboard, this was very important information for me at that point of time, because I really wanted to improve the dive time and get the weight down, because carrying around 10 extra kilo is a lot. I have the top 10 locked animals, and you see I see a lot of morays and turtles, which is awesome, and pufferfish and clownfish, the little Nemo fish, but also nudibranchs like little slugs, stingrays, parrotfish, triggerfish, these kind of things. Lately, I've been diving in the Maldives. I saw a ton of sharks, which was amazing. And my certificates you also saw during 2020 when we all were locked up. I did a lot of stuff that you could do at home, like fish identification, marine ecology, science of diving. I can really recommend that. So back then I got all my certificates, and since then only been diving. And I still have on my wish list to do like distress and rescue, these kind of things, but it's on the list. So you see, this is really like more a dashboard that I created. And then I created something, and this is why I bought the dive computer that I bought, the dive profile. So this was the fancy visualization I actually wanted from the computer that I bought, that I now created myself. Here I can actually at the top tell which dive I want to see. Now we are at dive 127, which was in Egypt, at the location where I dive a lot, really a lot. What the water temperature was, who my buddy was, did we have a guide? I also do a lot of unguided dives, but here we had a guide. What was my weight? And then the percentage oxygen. I dive a lot with nitrox, so not the air that normally is used when diving, but I really like to dive with nitrox. Then I have the sea creature. So what have I seen? Where it was. So this is just a map. I have longitude and latitude of all the dives I did, and then we can zoom in and you can see it's actually Egypt. And the dive profile, like what was the duration of the dive, what was the average depth, and what was max. And then here we see the minutes, and here I got in, we got down to 50 meters, spent there some time, and then slowly went up again. This was Egypt. Let's go to Maldives. So this was Maldives, and it was in the middle of the water. It was a boat trip. And if you have been to the Maldives, you know there is a lot of water also there. Here you see I was diving at the house reef, a place where I stayed, and also 30 meters. And this dive was actually like a search dive. With one of our previous dives, we had lost a part of our equipment, which we just realized when we went up again. And you don't want to leave anything in the water. At this place at 30 meters, there was actually a shipwreck where we lost the thing. So we went there, we found it, and then you see we slowly went up again. So you see I have all my dives here, and I can just switch between them. So that's kind of like going through my dive log, where I also go through it like that. And this was actually so much fun, especially because I created these 3 views, because all of this was just from the Excel files. And I want to show you different things here. This dive log, the top, for example, these are just KPI cards. So the new card visual, I can show you if I copy it and I reset all settings to default. Doesn't look very pretty, but this is actually just a KPI card where I do all kinds of formatting. So I make the background transparent, I have these accent bars at the left, these kind of things. So it's all formatting. And if you wonder how did you get a filter in the KPI card, I didn't. I just, if you look here, this is just max dive selected, and then I put a filter on top of it. Sometimes these workarounds work best. This is also KPI card, and the card's shape is rounded rectangle with corner radius. So then you get this shape. The sea creatures is actually a calculated column. I can show you what I did there. So I have my table animal scene dive, and then I just use a concatenate where I go to animal scene. If the dive is the current dive, so I told you I have this fish list where I say for every dive have I seen this fish, so it looks at which dive was selected, 144. Okay, in my list 144, which animals seen have the 1, that's here, and then put them next to each other, and I want them separated by comma, and then I get this. So I can show you the table. The source table looks actually like this, where I have all the fish, and then dive number 1, did I see it, yes or no? And I go through it till my last dive. That's what I told you, where I use AI to fill this by now. And then I unpivot it, so I get this fish times logged attribute. And then you see how this calculated column comes together. So this is a little bit of playing around to get that list, because I wanted it actually to be like in my dive log. And then diving location, how did I do that? I wrote down for every dive spot what the latitude and longitude is. I just searched these things. Like I said before, there's a lot of manual work going on in the stuff I'm doing. And then the dive profile, I will show you how I create that. Let's hide this image. You see this below is just an image. Let's go into the dive profile. That's the line chart here. And the image, that's the background image. So that's an image. And how did I create this? What I did, I hide the dive profile. I put in this image with the gradient, because if you dive deeper, it's getting darker. And I wanted that to be represented. So I found an image with a gradient and I put it in my report. And what I did then was I created a line chart. And in my line chart, I put on shade area. So if I turn that off, you see I just have a line. But if I turn that on, shade area, it will shade everything below that area. And for a dive log, that works perfectly, because now the deeper we go, and there we see 30 meters, it's darker blue. And the higher we go, it's getting lighter. You cannot do that just with a line chart, but you can do it by putting a picture in the back and then put your line chart in front of it and activate the shade area. And now you may wonder, why is it going down? Why is my dive profile going down? But the numbers are positive. Because 30 meters depth, of course, it's going down, but I don't want to write it down as minus 30. So if I turn on the y-axis, I want to show you how this actually works. You see this actually goes up 0, 10, 20, 30. So I actually created a measure that takes the max depth, which is 30 in this case, and then subtracts the actual depth. So if at the moment I was at 30 meters, this is actually 0. And the moment I was here, it's 4. And the shade area, this thing we see here, it shades what's below. So if I would not do that, if I would show you the real depth here, let's make a copy of this. Let's put this here. It would be like this, which is mirroring, of course, what you see below, because then it would go up. And even if I say invert range, then everything would be colored inside the line. And that's not what I want. So this is actually some workaround, some extra calculation to actually create this. So you need to flip the value that you want to see to create this. I hope this was not too confusing, because this took me ages to create, to be honest, because I really wanted that change in color and I really like it. Now you maybe wonder, what's the business value? And that's the thing. There is no business value. This is just something I created for myself, and it was fun, and it makes me very happy after my dives if I go into Power BI and I just have a look at stuff like this, like, oh, what are the animals that I've seen? How often have I been diving? These kind of things. And I really can encourage you to try something like this yourself, to try create something that has value for you and that lets you work creatively and not just following all others' tutorials, but trying out stuff yourself. So I created this video to show you a little bit like my thought process, why I created a dashboard like this, how I did that. I showed you some of the things that I've done, and I hope it helps you. I hope it inspires you to create your own report, your own dashboard with your data. If you have any questions, let me know.